Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at your respective app stores like iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me, whoops, I made my computer say, "Ouchie." There he is. I was looking for Aaron. I didn't see Aaron for a second. He disappeared a little bit, just a little. So Aaron, how you doing tonight?
Doing very well, actually. Got a little bit lucky when it came to getting home. Missed. Well, it hadn't snowed too much by the time I'd actually gotten home, so that was a relief.
Yeah, it's well here in Simcoe by the lake. We're still getting snow. I assume you're still getting snow.
Oh, it's coming down. It's very nice and white and fluffy.
Fluffy? Is it like our snow? Not packing? Well, it could be packing snow, but it's like styrofoam, right? Compared to wood, it's not very heavy.
Exactly. At this point
news
here, if it's unstepped on, it's not packing snow.
Right. And if you step on it, there's like a quarter inch left.
Yeah, exactly.
A foot becomes a quarter inch. That in itself is good news. Please, if you're watching this, don't go out unless you really have to. And I guess we're playing down the seriousness of the weather. You never should take for granted. I have a friend of mine who lives a couple of blocks away from you, and she posted that I got snow tires for the first time. I'm so happy because, snow tires are the kind of thing that, listen, I'm not here to sell snow tires. I'm just here to point something out. And that is, like her, and I'm sure, I think everybody I know that's put snow tires on, after people put the snow tires on, they go, I don't know why I didn't do this sooner, because the difference is phenomenal. And I'm not talking about all season tires. I'm talking legit snow tires. In other words, that soft rubber that doesn't freeze.
And it's a common mistake that everybody makes, that thinking all weather is basically the same thing as snow tires, when it is in fact very much not. And once you've been behind the wheel of a car with snow tires on, and the best example of that is if you have a car and you didn't have snow tires, especially for people who went from the same steering wheel, non-snow tires, to snow tires, you don't go back. Once you can stay on track, you don't go back. Well, I just made that up. That's stupid. Anyway, we'll let it go. Perfect.
All right, let's start with the CFL, and a big situation happened. Bo Levi Mitchell ended up in Hamilton. I've said that from a very long time ago.
No, you did mention partway through last year that if he was going to be going anywhere, odds are that he would end up in Hamilton. And sure enough, just about 24 to 40 hours ago, he signed. So that's absolutely great for Hamilton. Not so great for everybody else in the East Division, but
yeah. Well, I really like the idea that the intensity level will rise because he's in the division. It's an intensity level that rose before he arrived. In fact, Hamilton were the exception to the rule in the Eastern Division. And that is, the exception is they were the team that didn't improve over the past few years. So now what you've got is you've got a division that improved except for Hamilton, and now Hamilton has improved. Now, some may suggest that, well, Frank, what about the Red Blacks? Well, the Red Blacks were dealt a nasty blow. They lost their number one quarterback in week 1. So, in the Canadian Football League, I had there's also another story out. Anything else you want to add on the Bo Levi before I switch? Okay.
Nope. Go right ahead.
There was an article in 3 Down Nation about quarterbacks and how important they are. And the coach of the Toronto Argonauts suggested that maybe quarterbacks shouldn't be counted against the cap. Now, that's an interesting idea, one that I could get behind, because as I've said on this show and on our CFL show, and I've said for years, a Canadian Football League team without a real number one quarterback goes nowhere. They will go nowhere, because if you can't bring in a quarterback that is top notch in the Canadian Football League, the top notch quarterbacked teams will have a distinctly guaranteed advantage. And I point to one example. The last game that Hamilton played against Toronto, if you remember, they played their number 3 quarterback, and everybody assumed the Argos were going to win. Now, it could have happened that Hamilton won. It could have happened. But the fact is, it played out the way people predicted, and the prediction was strictly based on the fact that you have a 1 quarterback up against a 3 quarterback. And in the Canadian Football League, more than the NFL and more than any other football league that I've ever followed or watched, the quarterback is the most important player on the field. That's not, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm not trying to diss the rest of the players, but if you have your number 1 defender go down, if you have your number 1 receiver go down, you have your number 1 offensive lineman go down, your number 1 defensive lineman go down, there's a good chance that you'll find somebody that can play well enough to hide the fact that that person is down.
No, it's certainly true. And just by its very nature, the 3-down CFL is tailor-made for a quality quarterback. You're not as reliant on the run game. You got to air it out if you want to progress down the field. So I kind of agree with that sentiment that, not having a cap when it comes to quarterbacks wouldn't be a bad thing. I think I'd be very entertaining to see what sort of talent we could get in for that.
Watch how many quarterbacks they have on staff and the quality of quarterbacks they have. They'd still have 3. But there would be 1A on every team. There definitely would be a 1 and a 1A on every team. It wouldn't be a number 2 quarterback that, oh, look, he grew into the position. It's going to be legitimate prospects because they're going to be able to pay a little more money. And that's, Aaron, that's what it all comes down to, right? It comes down to a player will go to the NFL because they're going to get more money, right? And that's a guarantee. But if you can say to them, you're not just going to hold the clipboard. If you come here, there's a chance that you'll play, because in the Canadian Football League, we use 2 quarterbacks in the season. It's almost a lock. It's almost a guarantee. And for those who want to dispute that statement, I think it's more true than it's not that that's the case every year. There are more set number 2 quarterbacks that get real time under center in the Canadian Football League than they do in any other league.
No, it's true. And I mean, when you look at the quarterbacks that end up having the most success, oftentimes, surprisingly enough, it's not the number 1. It's the number 2 that ends up coming out on top because of the very reliance that there is in the CFL on a platoon and a 2 quarterback system.
Absolutely. Okay, let's leave the CFL behind and move on to the NHL and hockey, the game that we Canadians love so much. And so now, so Rick Tocchet comes in with the Vancouver Canucks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't get a Tocchet hello.
No, here's the thing. I think his appearance as the head coach for the Vancouver Canucks was actually delayed, because before appearing as the bench boss for the Vancouver Canucks, he was on TNT. And when he was an NHL analyst on TNT, he had a 1-month no compete built into his contract. So if he wanted to take another job within the NHL, he would actually have to take a full month off before he could actually appear. I'd like to think that the Canucks organization wasn't so cruel and heartless as to leave Bruce Boudreau in charge as a lame duck coach for a month on purpose. I just think someone on the Canucks might not have done their due diligence and realized that Tocchet wouldn't be able to be active for them for at least a month after leaving TNT. So
they look really bad. And I wonder, I wonder what they could have done. It sounds to me with this added little nugget, because with TNT, he probably had to let them know a month earlier that he was leaving. So that's a whole nother group of people that are there to keep a secret. And we all know about today, keeping secrets, it's just, there is no such thing as keeping a secret. So, is it the fault of of Vancouver and not dealing with it properly? Yes. The reason it's their fault is because they let this happen. What they should have done, hindsight, I know is something that, you know, a lot of people want. They should have just said, "I'm sorry. It's true. It got out there. You can leave now. You know, Bruce, we're done with you." And then give one of the assistant coaches for a couple of games the whistle. That's what they should have done. In my opinion, the first thing that came to my mind was, well, if it's so sure, if it's so sure that he's gone, then let him go. Don't make him twist in the wind like that. To make a man, you know, not, you know, I'm not saying that he's not an emotional guy, and we shouldn't tell men not to cry, that we shouldn't let men show their emotion. You know, that's what we want nowadays. But in that context, you want to watch him cry?
And you know, I mean, this whole thing has just been shambolic. I mean, Travis Green got fired back in December of 2021, and Boudreau was just sort of brought in on an interim basis, you know, for December 2021 all the way through until January 2023. It's 47 games. The Canucks ended up 19-25-3. That roster is very poorly constructed. There are a lot of issues right now with a lot of the big personalities taking up too much air in Vancouver. One of the most notable one being a guy that cussed out his goalie for taking too long and getting out of the net while he still had the puck in his own zone. So, you know, that's part of the issues there. You add in the fact that the Aquilinis can't seem to pull their heads out long enough to re-sign their leading scorer, as well as issues that they've had with goaltending and injuries. And this entire situation has just been bad.
Yeah, there really is no way to excuse the Vancouver Canucks and the result. You know, we can point fingers all we want. We can argue about, like I said, we can argue about how it was handled. But for me, the only thing that matters is the coach kept coaching when he shouldn't have been coaching. And everybody knew, and it was an embarrassment. It was a total embarrassment for that poor man. Maybe I shouldn't talk like that about him, but you know, I just can't imagine what it's like to be fired, not only be the last man to know it or last person to know it, but to also stay employed temporarily and know, you know, you're going to be told every time you go out there, you're waiting for in between periods, you know, and the embarrassment and humiliation is something that's unforgivable. And that's totally on the Canucks. I don't have to point a finger at the ownership. I don't have to point a finger at the president. I don't have to point a finger at the GM. But what I will say is this: it's an organizational faux pas, and one that really, really, especially when we were in the middle of one of those Bell talk moments, you know, we're in one of those moments where we're all making everybody aware that, you know, emotions matter and people's feelings matter, and you know, people need to feel valued. Wow. I mean, the poster situation for why people need to understand, you know, decent treatment of people. And it's workplace abuse is what it is. It was workplace abuse. By definition, I think it was, you know, just terrible. Let's take a look at the Habs. The Bruins. If there's two things that teams will be chasing for, Aaron, I tell you, the way these Bruins are playing, they're playing so well. They're playing so perfect. Man, I don't know if I wouldn't want to be the team to play them first in the playoffs. They beat Montreal.
Well, you know, and then again, Montreal is a team that everybody's supposed to beat, apparently, except for the Leafs. But that's usually the way it goes. Bergeron broke the tie with the Habs with 2:55 left. And they added an empty netter after that to beat the Habs 4-2 on Tuesday for their sixth straight win. You know, Bergeron said, "Hey, I grew up a Nordiques fan coming from Quebec City, but I do understand and recognize the tradition and everything that's been through and all the legends that are around, but it's still fun to beat them." Now, Swayman made a grand total of 19 saves on the game on 21 shots. That helped the Bruins improve to 38-5-4. That is a very impressive record anyway you look at it. They could actually technically play under 300 hockey for the remainder of the year and still finish with 120 points.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the Senators and Senators assistant coach Bob Jones diagnosed with ALS.
So this was a bit of a surprise to everyone. Not only that he was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, but the fact that he also wants to continue coaching and will continue to serve in this role on the Ottawa bench until such time as he decides he wants to step down. Pierre Dorion has said that Bob and his family's wishes are to take the step of making his condition public in an effort to drive ALS awareness as he fights the disease. And Bob will continue with his coaching duties, and he has the full support of the organization to take any time he needs away from the club during the season to concentrate on his health and his family.
Absolutely. The Jets, let's talk about them.
So Jano and Saros were the keys here for the Predators. They finally beat the Jets 2-1 on Tuesday night. Cody Glass had the other goal for Nashville, who have won 4 of their last 5 games. On the other side of the coin, I believe that the Jets had strung together a not inconsiderable number of wins, but that's the way it happens when there's 2 teams on streaks that meet. One of them is going to end up losing. Unfortunately, this time, the Jets ended up with the short end of the stick.
Johnny Gaudreau back in Calgary.
Highly anticipated return. After leaving under a bit of a cloud last season. But as it turns out, Dylan Dubé got to be the overtime winner as he scored in the extra frame to give them the 4-3 win. Now, it took 2 minutes and 25 seconds over overtime. Gaudreau had 2 assists. He missed a penalty shot and heard it all night from the fans in fine Calgary fashion.
Nylander scores enough points in one game to level him up at the top of the scoring chart with the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, he had 2 goals and 2 assists as they beat the Islanders. The Islanders have been 1-6-3 in their last 10 games, which is just not good. The Leafs, on the other hand, have been doing what they do, leafy things, but still 6-2-1 in their last 9, so that's good. Tavares had a goal and an assist. Calle Yarncroke and Austin Matthews also scored, and Justin Hall had 2 assists for Toronto, who were 3-0-1 in the last 4 and 6-2-1 in the last 9. That one, unfortunately, coming against the team they should have beat, but that's the way it goes.
Here's what I'll say.
Well. Yep.
Last week on Friday, I said this is a tough stretch for the Leafs because there's too many teams in this next stretch that they should beat, and that game with the Islanders started like but it's amazing how they turn things around thanks to Nylander, but also to some great team play and goaltending.
Yeah, no, Samsonov has been absolutely fantastic for the Leafs at home, so I'm glad to see he's continuing his good work there.
Can we bulk up some of these stories? We only got a couple of minutes left. I think the bottom line here is you have a bunch of incidents here that speak to the violence in Toronto. It's on the rise. Young people, old people being attacked. Our transit system not a safe place. Wrap this up as best you can, Aaron.
So there was an 89-year-old woman that was pushed down at the Yonge and King intersection. The individual who was caught at the scene, his charges have been upgraded to manslaughter because she passed away. 4 of the 10 youths that attacked 2 TTC workers on a bus in the Eglinton and Kennedy area have been arrested, thanks to the video surveillance on the bus. There was another woman who was stabbed by another lady, a 40-year-old woman stabbed a woman in her 20s on the streetcar. That woman was apprehended on the scene, and the Toronto Transit Union is actually calling for a national task force on this because attacks are reaching now a crisis level and their employees are getting involved. On top of that, there was another assault this afternoon in and around the Dundas and Spadina area. I believe there was another stabbing on a streetcar there. So be aware of your surroundings. Take whatever steps you can to protect yourselves and just be mindful of who's around you.
What I'll say about this, we've only got a minute left. What I will say is, and what I heard, and I'm putting my weight behind this, my common sense thinking behind this. I think, Aaron, we've entered into a time when people think that acting on grievances in a violent manner is acceptable. Yeah, and we need to do something about that.
Yeah, that issue needs to be addressed. Just acting out and taking your anger out on someone, or assaulting someone just because you think that you've been wronged is not the way to go about it, folks.
Well, in other words, angry. Just because you're angry or been made angry by your definition doesn't mean it gives you a right to literally what we're seeing here. And what's most scary is you're doing it. You're doing it to people who have nothing to do with the reason you're angry, and that's the most frustrating and terrible thing about all this. And it's something that society has to take care of.
No, for sure.
I think the world's falling apart over here.
Well, that's an appropriate way to end then.
I guess so. Well, he's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live. It airs Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Sorry, the news wasn't funny. I think somebody just dropped a bunch of stuff beside